Hey, Nicole, great to be with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my favorite topic.
Libraries as infrastructure. I am so excited for our conversation today. Welcome to Nonprofit Live. I'm Amy Fazio, your host of Nonprofit Live, where we talk to nonprofit leaders and change makers and community builders and get the word out about how we are creating movements out there, not just fulfilling our mission, but our missions together, really creating movements. And libraries are such an important part of that social network. So I'm excited to talk with you today.
Thank you. Me too.
If you're dialing in, we are on YouTube, we are on Facebook. If you are joining us, please say hi so we know you're here. There's a link above that you would hit www.streamyard.com/Facebook. Hit the blue tab so we can see who's commenting. Otherwise, StreamYard doesn't let us see. And if you're on LinkedIn, your link is above as well. StreamYard.com/LinkedIn. Hit the blue button. But let us know that you're here by saying hi and that you can hear us okay. I've had some technology issues. Nicole, I'm sure you and your team can really run out and get an Ethernet connection. But listen, I'm wired, so I'm ready to go. I hope you are too.
Yes.
Well, Nicole, let's get started. I'm excited to hear and have you introduce yourself to the group. Just to back up for a minute before I hand that over to you, we've been working together actually for a few months on and off. I worked with the Allegheny Library Association and did some board training, which your team participated in. And then we got to do a one-on-one session as you were moving into some strategic planning. And libraries have had a lot to consider as you move forward and plot out your next steps to fulfill your mission of connecting your community. So so excited to learn more today with you. Can you share with us a little bit about how you got involved with libraries in the first place and what's happening in the world of libraries for you today?
Yes. I actually started in libraries when I was 17 as a computer instructor at my local library in Penn Hills, outside of Pittsburgh. And long story short, many years later, I am the director of the Monroeville Public Library. So I've been in libraries for over 20 years, 11 of those as a director. And libraries are just community connectors. They are places where everyone is welcome, where everyone has opportunity. There are no socioeconomic barriers. And we're trying to break down the barriers that do exist. So what's happening in libraries is that we're reaching more people than ever. And we're making it our mission to give opportunity to everyone.
And that is, there's so much talk about infrastructure in the news today. Hey, congratulations, by the way, the infrastructure bill. Just as an American, we can all be happy, I think, that our infrastructure bill just passed a major hurdle in Congress. This bill has really brought up the conversation of what constitutes infrastructure in our country. And I like to think of it as what is essential for our communities to thrive. And the fact is, libraries do a ton to connect our communities and make that social network really viable for people to be successful. How has that changed for you? That mission hasn't changed, but how you deliver it really has been evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People, we're so siloed in so many ways that the library is one place where people can connect. And it's a social safety net in some ways. When you don't know where else to go for information, the library can help you. If they can get the answer for you, they do. If they can't, they figure out where to direct you. And it's a vital part of the community, and it's a connector for everyone.
Yeah, and not just connecting people with one another. You're saying also the resources in their communities that they might need, and also to information and facts, right?
Yes, absolutely. It is a difficult time where facts are not always as black and white as they used to be. And so it's a library's responsibility to make sure that we're providing all sides of an issue, but also true information, making sure that we're stocking things that help our community become more civic minded. We do a lot of programs. We let people come here and sign people up to vote. We work with the League of Women Voters there's a voter registration day, and just becoming connected in so many ways, socially, but also in a civic way, and in any way you can think. It's a place where people can find what they didn't know they were looking for.
It's the journey, right? That's the commitment to the lifelong learning that, quite frankly, democracies are very dependent on.
Yes.
You talk about how things are changing in our community, and it's really the responsibility, which is an interesting word you used, of the library to make sure that everyone in the community, it's a very inclusive process, right? It's not just giving out certain information, it's access to truth. And when communities are really struggling to come together to agree upon what that is, it can be a little bit of a hot potato. It's, in fact, libraries have a history of holding the torch of truth. I'm sure that isn't always easy in the history of libraries. This isn't the first controversial time that libraries have survived, I'm sure.
No. Libraries, in the quest to provide representation and inclusion for everyone, we've hit a lot of walls over the years. There's a reason that there's a National Banned Books Week, where we celebrate books that have been banned. And it's not just books, lots of material, but programming has been banned. But libraries have, again, that responsibility to represent everybody. There's such an importance in people seeing themselves in the materials that they can borrow, the programming that they attend. We've seen over the past couple of years, especially, how important representation is for children to feel like they belong. And so it's not enough to just say everyone is welcome. We need to provide everyone with that mirror, and mirrors and windows, mirrors to see yourself, and windows into new worlds. So the library is able to do that through representation.
Mirrors and windows. That's good stuff. I like that. And that it has to be a reflection. I think a lot of people throw around terms like safety and community. When we talk, but you're right, it's more than just saying it. It really is creating a culture and a climate where folks feel it. And that's true in fundraising as well. I think sometimes one of the biggest mistakes I see when people approach their community in the sense of fundraising is it feels like it is separate. It's a polished statement. It's we got to send this out, or we got to do this event. We need the money. But really, when fundraising is done well, you're sharing some of this more difficult conversation about the mission. It's not just the programs and problems, I like to say, but it really is helping your tribe, your community over time understand this deeper, more critical role that libraries play. I know we talked a lot about that, or we talked a bit about that with your board on how to include the community in general at being this place, this hub, and that it's really a shared responsibility. How does that tie into how you reach out to your community? How do you feel like your community responds to your role and responsibility in that way?
We were very fortunate. A few years ago, we participated in something called the Harwood Institute. And their idea is, in general, turning outward. And it's, we can't suppose to know exactly what people need. So we need to talk to them. And so, especially pre-pandemic, we're getting back there, but during the pandemic, it was harder. we would go into the community. We would have staff members go to the PTO meeting that they were going to go to anyway and listen. What is the community asking for? Because they don't, when you put out a survey at a library to say, what would you like? People ask for more of what you already have. They don't know what the possibilities are. And sometimes we don't know what the possibilities are until we work together with other community organizations. So getting out into the community, having these natural conversations during gatherings that are already happening, going to the festivals and the fairs and the expos and showing up. Two of my staff members were at the Vegan Expo the other day, and everybody was stunned that they were there, and they were so excited to see them. And they interacted with people who don't normally use the library, but who said, oh, I didn't know you had that. That's great. I could use that. I'm going to stop in. So I think just working together with different community organizations and reaching out to the community as much as possible. We can't do it all ourselves, and we shouldn't. We need to get rid of those silos, and we need to work with community organizations so that we are serving the community to the best of our ability.
So that your programs reflect it, but also your messaging, so that you can bring these people together, right? We talked a lot about, and I talk a lot about, digital community building. So when you can't be, in addition to being in front of people face to face, how do you mobilize your tribe so when you need them to take action or to get involved with a fundraiser or to use the services, you have a direct line to ask them questions about what they need and what they hope for their community?
In our strategic planning, we're really working on the social media aspect. We're not quite there yet, but we're definitely working on it. One of the things we found out during the pandemic was that we could build community online. Yeah. And we actually had people who called recently and said, please don't take away the online programming, because it was the first time they had felt connected, because for one reason or another, they couldn't come out of their home, but from home, they could connect.
It's so important. I mean, I've been working with nonprofits for 25 years, and as I'm teaching clients this digital community building process, it really becomes critical of creating that same safe space, but online.
Yes.
And your messaging plays such an important role of it. Here's what I'm concerned about for libraries, Nicole, is traditionally they've been quasi-governmental. They've been heavily funded by a very local government funding. And as that money gets more and more precarious, those conversations between school districts and libraries and borough councils and mayors and police departments are going to get trickier.
Absolutely. The pandemic proved to us more than ever that advocacy is key. Our community members assume we're always going to be here. And we've done a great job over the years as a collective to do more with less. And we've gotten to the point where everyone is working bare bones, and we cannot do more with less. We are at the point where we are doing the most we can, which is still admirable with the amount that people can do with what's been taken away. But we need the community to understand and advocate that, yes, we want our library. We want our library funded so that they can provide us with all of these opportunities, with job workforce development, with early literacy, with family engagement, senior engagement, all these things. It really hit home during the pandemic, especially when we were forced to close our doors, which we didn't think was a thing that could happen. And it clearly was. People were so thankful. We've been open since, for the second time since the end of January. And before that, we were open from about July until December. So we only closed for a few weeks there at the end of 2020. And we were still doing contactless pickup, but we've been mostly open since the end of January. And we still have people coming in every day thanking us for being open, thanking us for being here, saying that, they are so thankful for their library. And we appreciate that. And we need to get that message out. We need our supporters to understand that nothing is forever, and we need their support to make sure that we can continue to receive the funding that lets us serve them and provide them with what they need.
And really beyond the programs and in addition to the programs and services, it's really ensuring that democratic infrastructure. Libraries are civic engagement and action. It's much more than programs and circulation, because we see that that's going to change, and that's going to continue to change over, my gosh, can you imagine 20 years from now, the
No.
different types of services you likely will be providing? I don't think any of us can probably totally guess what that's going to be. But it's changing so rapidly. What I loved about working with your board and what your board is doing is the willingness to look at that, to make that decision to be bold and courageous, right? I've worked with quite a few libraries in the last year or so, maybe 30 to 40 libraries. And there is a cultural understanding that the funding is reliable and it's consistent and we know where it's going to come from. On the other hand, I hear libraries saying, but we want to engage more young people. And, you want to keep one foot in one world and one foot in another, but it comes down to your magnetic messaging. It's what I call fearless fundraising. It's that courage that leaders have to realize they're building a movement and not just a mission, just like you're saying. And so your audience, your whole community, not just the users of the library, your whole community needs to understand why having our libraries in our neighborhoods is so, so important to our economy, to our society, to our schools, to our children, to our employers, to our real estate agents.
Yes, yes.
They like it too.
Yeah, that's an outreach that we're working on, reaching out to the people who are new in town to welcome them and say, hey, come check out the library, because it's a reason a lot of people move in, because you have a library, because you have a great park system. It helps the local economy to be stronger.
No doubt about it. It boosts home values and makes it a much more appealing community to move into. And I think sometimes when we don't own the power that this is about more than books, when we don't message strongly that and take the courageous step to invite people into understanding more about how you are the fabric of our communities, along with schools, I would argue. As a school board member, I'm going to throw schools in there too.
Well, we are part of the Department of Education. We are also an educational institution.
Yeah, that partnership, along with the local municipalities, is really critical. But to be a good partner, I think diversifying revenue is what good partners do, right? We don't lean too heavy on each other. We lift each other up and forward. And it's that strong magnetic message that really is a choice to design through digital community building. So I'm really glad to hear that that's going to be a focus for you moving forward.
Yeah, and finding that resiliency in funding is something we're really focused on, because we do understand that, and we have for a while, that it's not a given, and we really need to rally our community, not only to support us, but so that we can support them, and so that we can provide what they're asking for, or what they don't even know that they want to ask for.
Yeah, and I remember talking with your group. The impression I have are people who would donate to libraries and fund libraries are not necessarily the people using the library, but with the right message, they'll understand how it is a fabric of society. It will also reintroduce them right to why it's a community for them too, because it's been a minute since they've been in there. I'm sure that's true for some of our listeners.
Yeah, it's very true. A lot of people, they haven't been to the library since they had kids, and then they don't come back until they're older. That is a big gap that we fight to fill in. But when they do come back, they are surprised at how much is available. And so we just have to keep trying to get that message out there. But even people who don't use it on a daily basis themselves see the value in it. And now that we have so many digital resources, everybody can access it if they have the internet infrastructure, which is another thing we found out. We knew, but it really hit home how important it was. We have over 30 hotspots, and they are checked out all the time because people do not have the access to internet that they need.
The quality internet. And this infrastructure bill we're seeing move through of the $5 billion that's going to existing infrastructure improvements, it's a big chunk is going to broadband. Thank goodness. I know in rural Pennsylvania, it is a top priority, no doubt.
Absolutely.
There's so many exciting things. I'm so glad to hear the board. So tell me a little bit about when you decided to do the strategy session with me. What were some of the projects you were working on around strategic planning, and how did that work out? How is your team focusing on the strategic planning process today?
We were at a really great point pre-pandemic, and then we fell from on high really hard. And it was difficult, but we decided to look at it as an opportunity to rebuild. And so we looked at, we've done a great job over the years, but we don't have the infrastructure to build that community with fund development and things like that. So when we met with you, we were just talking about what can we do for the end of 2021 and for 2022 to push us into the future. And your very simple strategy helped us. I shouldn't say the strategy is simple, but it helped us simplify what we were looking at. And we realized that we had all of the information in our heads, and we were all going in the same direction, but we just needed to write down those priorities and figure it out from there. And, look at what wasn't 100% before the pandemic. Do we bring it back? What are the pros and cons? And where do we go from here? So right now, when we were working with you, and we're still working on it, we are really focusing on fund development and volunteerism. So to try to build the library reach despite funding difficulties.
Yeah. Building that capacity, right? So that
Yes.
you can be moving your impact forward to attract the donors to move your impact forward even more.
Yes.
That infrastructure term is interesting, right? In the nonprofit sector, we often refer to it as capacity building, but that's what it is. That's the neat thing about the term infrastructure. It can really mean some different things at different layers. I love the message around simplicity. I think that is really important to remember, that a simple plan with a powerful message and the tools and tactics to grow your tribe online can change things for an organization very, very quickly, but it does take courageous leadership. So I absolutely love working with your team. I loved the vulnerability and honesty that your group was willing to engage in, because that's what sells. I mean, I'll just be really honest, as a fundraising expert, and what we're going to be getting into next week in my Fearless Fundraising Masterclass is, how do you balance the message of the big vision with the tactical steps of today that builds your authority and the trust of your audience that you're the person to invest in to get it done. It's not enough to have a big idea or big heart. You have to mirror it with the plan. And so thank you for saying that it was a simplified process, because if it's not, it'll just sit on the shelf and collect dust.
That is exactly what I was thinking. If you have a 75-page plan, you're never going to use it. But if you have a 6-point plan that's going to move you forward, you're ready.
You're going to feel crazy confident in sharing that plan with your community. And by being open and honest with them, they will give more, and they will give more often. And the big hits are nice, right? Big dollar gifts are always nice, grants and other, but the individual donors, to me, really demonstrates the movement. It really demonstrates the advocacy, the power you have behind you. And so it's such an important part and focus of a good fundraising plan.
Yeah, we've really just recently had some monthly donors come on board.
Nice.
And, it may not be a lot per month, but it's an investment it's a continuous investment in the library. And so we're very excited to build that kind of
Powerful.
grassroots giving as well.
So let me ask you this, Nicole. If you've been a director for quite a while and you've been navigating through all kinds of scenarios, keeping the library innovative and in touch and relevant. Other nonprofits can relate to that struggle as well. What advice would you have for nonprofit leaders out there that are trying to figure out how to engage their community more effectively?
Figure out your staff. Figure out what their strengths are. Ask them to meet the community where they already are. You would be surprised. You'd be surprised where people are going, who they meet with, the groups that they're part of, and ask them to, answer 2 or 3 questions when they come back about, hey, what did people talk about? Did they have any kind of concern? What was the takeaway? Is there anything you think we can do? Or is there anything that rang a bell to you? Now, I'm fortunate. I actually tell my staff, if they're going to do that, if they're going to come back and they're going to fill out those few questions to share with everybody, then that meeting that they were going to go to anyway counts as work time.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate to have the capacity to do that. But we also see the importance of doing that. So we've made it work. So just figure out what your staff's passions are and what community groups they're already connected to. Also find the community groups that have similar missions to yours. Stop trying to compete and start trying to work together. It's very hard to get in there because everybody thinks you're up to something or you want to take something away from them. No, you want to help them help you. You want to work together. The whole is stronger than the parts. So I think it's really important to reach out to those community organizations who have similar missions and help each other move forward.
A really important, that's really meaningful advice. That's really important stuff. An important part of the Magnify Your Mission system is mapping out as you grow your tribe, right? So you're not just fundraising here and there, but you're engaging regularly. So when you have a fundraiser, people are informed and ready to engage. It's really an important part of the Magnify Your Mission system. And when we map out our tribe, when we map out where our people are, we use the phrase, who cares? Who cares as much as we do? Mm-hmm. And you're right. Often it's our collaborators that have a similar vision for the community, though they might be going about it a little differently. And so to find where those unique differentiators are and then message it is just going to skyrocket your engagement. And so when you move into your fundraising season, which September is right around the corner for Love Your Library. I know you have a big month coming up.
Yes.
I bet you're very busy gearing up for the maybe an in-person event, but certainly lots of messaging and emails.
Yeah, this year we're not doing an in-person event. Thank you, COVID. But we have in the past usually done an in-person event in September. But we will do a mailing and we will do a lot of social media engagement, a lot of in-person engagement, asking people not only for donations that'll be part of the match, but also asking them to write down, why do you love your library? So that we can share those pieces with our decision makers so they can see why people find value in the library and why they should support that with appropriate funding.
Yeah, it's, I honestly have really enjoyed fundraising during COVID. For my clients, they raised more money with their virtual events because they weren't able to hide behind the fluff. They weren't able to spend the energy on the pieces that actually didn't result in more money. They had to ground down into their message and they had to get honest about what wasn't working and how best to convey that instead of, we got this, figure it out. Everything's fine. We just need money, but everything else is fine. You don't need money. You don't need just money. The money is a byproduct of systems working well and your ability to build your community, the money will come. So when somebody comes with me to me with a fundraising problem, never do I start with, well, let's look at the structure of your event. That's usually not the problem.
Yeah, it's the relationships, because you can have the best event in the world, but if you don't have enough people wanting to come, the library where I worked previous to this, Community Library of the Shenango Valley, had a wine and cheese event every year, and it raised quite a bit of money for that library. And I think the fourth time, which unfortunately was my last time there were 2 other events in the community, and I panicked. I thought, we're going to lose all these people, because there were 2 other events that night, even though we had worked with the chamber to try to find a good night. And literally, people came after the other events or before the other events and said, we can't miss the library wine and cheese. And that wasn't because the event was the best thing ever. It was because the relationship they had with the library and their community was great.
The fundraising is in the relationships. Those relationships don't just happen because you have a good cause. You have to create a culture where people feel like they belong. And that's what libraries do. That's certainly what you're accomplishing in Monroeville. And I'm so grateful for your work and your commitment to our community. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your help. We were really excited to work with you this year and look forward to working with you in the future. It really has helped us as we see this as an opportunity to rebuild just in the right way and in a way that is accessible and gets us excited, not overwhelmed.
I love to hear that. Thank you so much. That is my mission. I am passionate about helping leaders and community builders be their badass selves and go beyond what they thought possible, because it benefits all of us. So thanks for being that. And I'll be adding the link for the masterclass coming up next week. Is there anything you'd like to share? We can add a link for folks to check out the upcoming activity around Love Your Library. Nicole, I'll be sure to forward that along.
Absolutely. Our main library page, monroevillelibrary.org, will have the information very soon about Love Your Library. And there are quite a few opportunities to give, to do raffles, to share your thoughts, all sorts of fun things.
Fantastic. Be fearless, be bold, be courageous. Keep up the fight, Nicole. Thank you so much. And thanks for protecting our democracy. It's important.
Thank you so much. Thank you for helping nonprofits and helping us to serve our communities.
Well, good. We'll see you soon. And everybody get to your library.
Wonderful.
Take care.
Take care.